एम आई ऑडिबल? सुनाई दे रहा है मुझे? हेलो, प्लीज समवन रिस्पॉन्ड. हेलो, इफ आई एम ऑडिबल प्लीज समवन रिस्पॉन्स. कोई बात नहीं. एनीवेज, माय नेम इंजीनियर रणदीप चक्रवर्ती. It has been a long time since I'm coming live or posting something in my blog or in this Facebook page. So should I continue in English or in Hindi, or just mixing both a bit much together? I think English will be a good idea. So I'll mix it up, both the Hindi and English, and obviously I'll use the terms of technical nature in English. तो आज मैं जिस बारे में बात करना चाहता हूँ, कुछ टेक्निकल प्रॉब्लम्स व्हाट वी रियली फेस इन आवर एवरीडे साइट वर्क्स, स्पेशली विच आर इन स्ट्रक्चरल नेचर. जो साइट पे काम हो रहा है ना, वहाँ पर जो कॉन्ट्रैक्टर हो चाहे जो मैसन हो, वो लोग कुछ गलतियाँ कर देते हैं. इट्स नॉट लाइक दैट दे डू इट इंटेंशनली. इन मोस्ट ऑफ द केसेस they do such things due to their lack of knowledge regarding those matter. So as a responsible engineer, it is our duty to catch those points and rectify those errors at site. So I will start talking in sequence of the load dispersion criteria. So here we come with the point, load dispersion criteria. What is load dispersion criteria? What does dispersion means? Before starting to discuss any further, at this very point of time, it is of much interest to understand what is load dispersion criteria. See, structure have his own way of flowing the load from top to the bottom. The way the load flows through the structure is known as the load dispersion criteria. So let us consider a structure. Just consider a building. In a building, where do we stand? We stand on the slab. That slab rests upon the beam. So you can see that beam, that slab is resting on this beam, and that beam is in turn connected to the column back end there. So load is flowing from the slab to the beam and then going to the column, and through that column it is going to the foundation and then to the resting soil. So according to load dispersion criteria, the load first comes on slab, then through beam it goes to the column and then to foundation, and then it is transferred to the soil. So let us consider a site where we are doing our job as a site engineer. I am just going to identify very common mistakes over there. In most of the sites it happens. First of all, let us take RCC slab. First of all, what is not dealt with is the clear cover. क्लियर कवर इज़ वेरी मच इम्पॉर्टेंट। देखिए जो स्लैब होता है ना वो बहुत ही थिन होता है। इन मोस्ट ऑफ द केसेस फॉर बिल्डिंग्स द स्लैब इज़ ओनली ऑफ 100 millimeter or at most 150 millimeter. It is very rare to have slabs greater than 150 millimeter in depth. Even 150 millimeter is much of rare case, because generally we use spans of about 3 meters to 4 meters or 5 meters. In those cases, if we design it properly, then thickness will come to something around 125 millimeter or so. So in most of the cases, like residential or official buildings, the slab thickness will come around to 100 to 150 millimeter of depth. As it is a very thin member, and as we know, in case of the RCC section, the reinforcement is mainly used to take up the tensile stresses. So under the action of the load, any structural member gets its elastic curve, the shape of the bending. So we have to place the reinforcement in the face where the tension takes place. Thus the tensile stresses develop, and to resist and to take up those tensile stresses, we have to put the reinforcement. So ideally we have to place the reinforcement to the near about the extreme fiber of the section. But as we know, in a RCC section, the reinforcement and the concrete act simultaneously as a composite member to take up the stresses. Okay. Now, as I've already said that most ideally we should place the reinforcement just near the extreme fiber, but to make that composite member, that is the composite of the steel, this reinforcement and the concrete act together, we need certain amount of bonding between them. So we cannot just put them at the edge of the slab. We have to embed it to some distance inside the slab from its edge. That gap from the edge of the concrete member to the surface of the reinforcement is known as the clear cover. This clear cover is very much important from the durability point of view, because if this cover is insufficient and inadequate, then the durability of the structure will drastically get reduced, because moisture will penetrate near the surface zone. As concrete is not perfectly impervious, it is impossible almost to make impervious, completely impervious concrete. We can make it lesser amount of penetrable, but we cannot completely make it impervious. So certain amount of moisture will always get sucked by the concrete surfaces, and it will be transferred near the zone of the reinforcement, and in presence of the moisture and oxidation will occur, and the reinforcement will get rust. In that case, what problem we will have? The main problem will be there will be spalling of the cover. So we have to ensure that that cover which we are providing is sufficient enough to provide enough durability. Now I have some interesting point to tell. See, there was, before the IS 456-2000, there was previous version of the same code. Then why it became necessary to provide a new code? If we go through the IS 456, it has mainly given, what to say, it has given is much of attention to the durability aspects of the structure, not only the strength parameters. Like minimum grade of concrete has been changed from M15 to M20 for RCC. Why? Does that mean that the structures which were previously designed with the M15 grade of concrete are unsafe? Definitely not. The change in grade of concrete, of the richness of the concrete grade, actually increases its durability parameters, like its imperviousness. So we have to provide sufficient amount of cover. This cover cannot be provided arbitrarily. It shall be fixed as made by the designer. If a designer says it's 20 mm, then it must be 20 mm. If the designer says it is 40 mm, it shall be 40 mm. It shall not be left at the whim of the mason at the site that he will give cover according to his choice or his ease of construction. So what we must ensure is that cover blocks is used at site. Cover blocks can be cast at site with the materials which are already available, or it can be separately purchased from the hardwares and it can be used. Now standard size cover blocks are already available, like 25 millimeter, 40 millimeters, 20 millimeters, which is standard measurements of a cover block. It can be also cast at the site. How can we cast it? We have to use the same proportion of the cement and sand which are to be used in the actual process of concreting of the structure. Suppose we are using the nominal mix of M20 grade concrete, which is 1:1.5:3. So that means with 1 part of cement we are using 1.5 part of sand. In saturated surface dry condition, it is to be mentioned. So after allowing some bulkage, it will come around for around say 1.8. So with 1 part of cement we have to use 1.8 parts of sand and prepare the mortar, and with that thing we have to cast the cover blocks, and it shall be cured for 7 days, then we shall use it at the site. These cover blocks are very much important and most neglected part. Even I have seen at many sites that beams are not running in straight alignment. Reinforcements are being forced at one side of the formwork, and even during casting those things are not being corrected. They are just putting some concrete over those beam and just concealing it. It is not a good way to do concreting, because due to that misalignment, that reinforcement in the formwork of the beam not being straight and having a serpentine nature of its axis will generate torsional forces around those turning points, which is very much detrimental for the structures. We don't see much of the hindrance in case of the smaller residential buildings, because the loading class is much low, so much so that the factor of safety, which is already taken into account, compensates for all the odds we are doing at site. And due to this thing, this factor of safety, day by day the masons are becoming overconfident, because the structure doesn't fall now. Structure doesn't collapse that easily. So that first thing is the cover block, and the second thing in case of the slab which we must see is that the cranking of bars. If we are using the reinforcement in the slab in alternatively cranked up fashion, then that crank portion, see this bar is going like this and gets cranked. So that depth of cranking must be sufficient, because we are cranking up bars to check the negative bending moment at the near the support zone. And if we study a structure properly, we will see that for a continuous slab, the hogging moment is the primary condition for determining the structural geometry. What is structural geometry? Like its depth. Structural geometry in case of slab merely means its depth. So the hogging moment in case of a continuous slab is the primary determinant of determining the structural geometry, and that is of much importance. And I have seen many of the sites that people tend to neglect that cranking depth of the reinforcement at site. Now what happens if we ignore the cranking depth? Suppose we are having a slab of overall depth 125 millimeter thickness and having effective cover of 25 millimeter. Effective cover means clear cover plus half the depth of the reinforcement. That is the distance from the extreme edge to the center of the reinforcement which is being stressed. So suppose we are having a slab of 125 millimeter overall depth and having a 25 millimeter of effective cover as per the designer's output. So we are using cover block at the bottom of the bars, at the bottom of the mesh, that is the crisscross pattern of the reinforcement in both the directions. So for the positive movement, the stress, tensile stress is at the bottom face, because slab is generally loaded from its top ideally. So slab will just bend like this and the tensile stress is at the bottom. If we are putting 20 millimeter say cover block and reinforcement is 8 millimeter. I have already said that effective cover is as given by the designer is 25 millimeter. So 20 millimeter of clear cover and 8 millimeter of bar means half of it will be 4 millimeter. So up to the center of the reinforcement we are getting 24 millimeter. So it's almost okay. From the positive bending moment consideration, it is all right. Now here comes the tricky thing, what most of us are neglecting. Near the support zone where we are just cranking up the bar, why you are providing that crank? To transfer the layer of reinforcement from bottom zone to the top zone for taking up the tensile stresses which is forming at the top portion near the top fiber of the slab near the support zone. That is the negative bending moment or the hogging moment, whatever you say. So if we don't provide that cranking depth properly, what will happen? That there will be larger gap from the top of the bar or the center of the bar to the top of the slab. That means if we consider the slab from the top side, then that gap, clear gap, is being exited what is given by the designer. Designer has given already that 25 millimeter will be the effective cover, but if that cranking is not proper, then that effective cover, which is now counted from the top, because the bending moment, bending moment is negative right now. We are checking the negative bending moment. So depth will be, effective depth will be considered from the center of the bar to the bottom of the slab, not from to the top of the slab, because the bending pattern has changed. So though we have provided the exact same reinforcement, the exact same cover block at the bottom, if we don't give the right amount of the cranking depth, actually what we are doing, that we are having for the same cross sectional area of the slab lesser effective depth for checking that native bending moment, and that negative bending moment, by the way, is the governing moment in slabs, continuous slab, which is the most practical cases for any kind of buildings. So though we have provided the exact right amount of reinforcement, the exact right amount of depth, we are not getting the required moment of resistance against that negative moment to take up the tensile stresses. So it is very much important to provide adequate amount of this cranking depth. What will be the cranking depth over here? What I have already told, that 25 millimeter should be the effective cover. So we must crank up the bar to that extent, so that from the top of the slab to the center of the top arm of the reinforcement is 25 millimeter. So this cranking depth will be 125 millimeter of slab less 2 cover 20 millimeter or 20 millimeter. So it is 40 millimeter is gone. Then 8 millimeter, again another 8 millimeter, so it is 48 millimeter gone, say 50 millimeter. So 125 millimeter was the slab, and less 50 millimeter, it is 75 millimeter. So from the center of the bar at the bottom to the top bent portion shall be 75 millimeter, to be precise. But in practical, if you minutely look at the bars in the most of the cases, especially in the rural areas where the masons are not much of skilled, they won't provide that much of cranking efforts. It is not due to their intention to do some wrong type of work, it is due to their lack of knowledge regarding the matter. So from the structural aspect, these two are the most common mistake what most of the practicing engineers or professional engineers will face at site. There are many others, like less amount of bonding link provided, this is the lapping between the bars, many other things, but these are a very common mistake. And why I am telling it over here is that it is neglected by the engineers also. Most of the engineers doesn't even care about the cranking up depth, because many of them are not so serious about the consequences which may turn out from this, what should I say, intentional delay of gathering that sense that he is unknowingly doing some crime. So for today I am concluding over here. Tomorrow I will discuss about some pretty common mistake in the beam also. Thank you.